when you said I didn't know the term, new age bullshit. It just reminded me of Marshall's humor and how
Yeah.
like kind of like he would just cut through, wouldn't suffer fools, so to speak, and just cut through to things and so I was just enjoying remembering that aspect of Marshall and his personality and his way of being in the world. So that was
Yeah.
just I was also just enjoying that.
Yeah. He wasn't necessarily polite. He was real.
Very.
It reminds me of the book, Don't Be Nice, Be Real. Yeah.
Hmm.
That was Marshall.
Yeah.
And it's just for me a demonstration that love is not being, I don't know, it's kindness, but it's also rawness. It's authenticity. Love is real. It's being authentic. It's not just being nice, nice, nice.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of room for honesty and love. Okay. So we're open for questions. You asked some questions about the IIT.
I was wondering um, if it would be advantageous or recommended to take a workshop prior to the more immersive experience. I think my familiarity is only through some folks that have shared nonviolent communication ideas with me, and I like the idea, but I don't know much else. So I didn't know if, um, yeah, any thoughts on what might be a way to go about it, or if it is totally fine just to do the immersive right off.
Duke or Jacinth, you want to respond to that?
Do you want to go?
Um, I might have a different answer than you, Jacinth, but I think a couple things come to mind for me personally is, if it's alive in you and it sounds fun to do, a beginning training or something, that would be super helpful. And we are also going to have, some form of beginners pathway for the first 3 or so days, um, so that we make sure and cover like all the most important concepts before you kind of join in with the rest of the group who have maybe a wider thing. But it certainly can be beneficial if you can make that work to have some background, but it's not 100% necessary. And Jacinth, I don't know
I
if you
would
want to
have said
add or.
this. No, same thing. It's really how you feel it, and of course, if you have a little more knowledge, it may be helpful for you to join in and to connect, but it's not mandatory.
Yeah. And I would add, if you have the opportunity and you have a chance to, I would suggest doing it just because it takes time to really absorb the whole concept of NVC to actually integrate it into your body. So I I went to I don't know how many 10 or 12 intros that Marshall gave. It was always an introduction, but I always learned something different. So um, and plus the variety, hearing things from different trainers. That's one thing nice about the IIT. We have 4 or 5 trainers there, plus a couple of attending trainers. So we'll have 6 to 7 trainers there actually. And so it's a chance to have different perspectives, and which is always helpful. For my, I encourage people to see as many trainers as possible, just to have that a broader experience. So if you'd enjoy it and if you have the opportunity, then I'd say go for it. But it's like Duke said, it's not mandatory. We will have a beginner's track to help get people up to a baseline anyway. Does
That,
that help, Daniel?
that's really helpful. Thank you. And I was noticing there was a book Marshall wrote. Maybe it was updated. Would that be recommended to review. Not that I don't get the impression it's an absolute requirement, but perhaps that might be a helpful way to introduce myself as well.
Sure. Yeah, the basic book, Nonviolent Communication, Language of Life, or whatever it was. I've forgotten what the title is now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good basis. And also the spirituality
Practical
book is
spirituality book.
practical spirituality is a good background as well. And that's a short little book. But I think the basic one is always good as a starting point. I have one right here.
Mm.
So that book is good to, here we go.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And you can look on YouTube for martial videos, and you have a lot of resources, and it could give you a taste of NVC, and help you, as Tosha was saying, it's a process that you're going through. So the earlier you get in, it's gonna, I don't know, you're gonna soak in this new ways of embracing life.
Yeah, it really is a different way of looking at the world. So it's an adjustment. So yeah, as much as you can look at to begin to absorb is helpful. Anything else on that, Tanya? You're muted, so.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, no, that's wonderful to think about. I think it had come up in conversation previously for myself, and I meant to explore it, and somehow years passed, and I finally remembered it recently. So I think I almost had a sense of urgency to I better get on
Oh
this.
no!
So,
I should have been doing this before.
Yeah, no, like a self-imposed urgency and more a desire to follow up and actually engage. And I tend to be like not always, but an all or nothing. So I'm like, I'm just gonna do the whole thing. But it's really helpful to hear about ways in which I could acclimatize or start to absorb some of the teaching and the material. So thank you for all of your feedback and thoughts.
Yeah, and what Jacinth said about watching some videos of Marshall is really helpful. Seeing the source, I find really beneficial. So he does have a number of videos on YouTube, and I would take a look at those.
I'm curious about how you found out about the IIT, if you're not already in NVC circles, and it sounds like it was a while ago that these people spoke to you about it and you've kept it brewing for a while. So yeah, would you mind answering that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to actually place who mentioned it, but I believe one of my friends who is also a therapist had taken a training of sorts, and I don't know if she had ended up doing the immersive version or not, but just had talked about it as an approach. And whatever our conversation was really piqued my interest. I explored a little bit, but then I think when something reminded me of it recently, I went online, realized there was an immersive option, which, as I was joking earlier, I'm like, dive in the deep end sort of situation that I like to put myself in sometimes. And then I noticed there was an event in Canada, which is where I live. And so, yeah, I got very excited. And so that originally from a person who is a counselor or a therapist of sorts had done some training and shared some of what they learned or what the approach looked like in their practice. And I thought it was pretty remarkable.
Good. And that's interesting because the fact that you're in Canada and this is in Canada was one of the deciding factors. And so I was curious about whether that was the case for you, because they're very rare to occur in Canada and on the East Coast. So I'm glad we're offering it and that you can come.
Yeah, I was really excited. I actually had emailed, and sorry, is the name pronounced Tosha? Is that correct?
Yeah, Tosha.
Tosha? Okay. Tosha, I had asked because I had no familiarity with the frequency within which these are hosted in general, but in Canada specifically. And it had been shared that the last one potentially was in the early 2000s. And so I was like, oh, I better get on this. This
Yeah.
is not a annual occurrence. So unless I'm interested in crossing the border, which I didn't catch the first part of the conversation, but I may or may not be as interested in crossing the border lately. So anyway, but yeah, the location meant a lot, and I appreciate that.
Well,
And-
thank you.
And after that email I sent you about the one in Quebec, I found out that there had been one in BC in 2016, I think. But those are the only ones that have been in Canada. So, yeah, good chance. Where are you located, Danielle?
I'm in Woodstock, Ontario,
Okay. I'm not
which
sure
is
where
just,
that is.
it's kind of midway-ish between Toronto and London,
Okay.
or like, yeah, it's that, yeah, that'd be probably the best landmark.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
Mark, how about you? Where are you located?
I'm in Ottawa, and I'm looking forward to this IIT. I attended an IIT in Los Angeles, Rancho Palos Verdes, summer of 2023, and really enjoyed it. And
Great.
yeah, I got started with NVC with Gina and Tosha in 2011 at
Okay.
Tucker House in
Oh, you came
Rockland,
to Tucker.
Ontario. Yeah.
Yes. So
So
Tucker House.
that's what 13 years ago. And yeah, it was intriguing, but I think the IIT experience in LA really grabbed me and encouraged me to dive in. So I'd been thinking of going to the IIT in the Albuquerque area.
Mhm.
And I think, Duke, you were one of the instructors
Mhm.
maybe there, and
Yes,
I
yes.
connected with Karen Stars to investigate that. But then when I heard of an IIT right in my backyard, so to speak, I
Right.
thought, oh, that's so much easier. But I'm delighted that, Duke, that you're one of the trainers who's going to be at this IIT, because I understand that you do a lot of work around restorative circles.
Yes, yes.
And
Yeah.
that's a topic that really interests me. So if you have any offerings at the IIT on that subject, I'm sure I'll be there.
Great, great. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
definitely do that. And I don't know, Gina and Tosha have done a lot too. They may join me. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, for sure I'll be doing
Yes.
something.
Yeah. And then Tosha, I know you and Gina at Tucker House did combined NVC and interrelationship focusing. And I think that's
Yes.
a powerful combination. So if you have any offerings around interrelationship focusing, I'll be right there for those sessions as well.
Okay.
I think it'll be, yeah, an amazing group of trainers and potential topics. So I should mention, after attending the IIT in LA, I'm interested in pursuing certification. And so
Oh,
I've
great.
been talking to Roger Soro about
Hmm.
engaging as a candidate under his guidance or mentorship and possible role as an assessor. So one of the things that I'll hope to do in coming to the IIT is see if with the team of instructors, there might be an instructor that over the course of the 9 days at the IIT that somebody would, if I would connect, fairly well with one of the instructors, that I would have an instructor who might provide a recommendation to Roger in support of my registration as a candidate, a certification candidate. Thank you.
Good, yeah. Yeah, be sure and mention that at the IIT to the trainers so that you get to know them and can do some things that way.
Thank you.
So Jacinth is an assessor as well as Gina. So there's two assessors that are going to be there at the IIT that can answer questions and things like that and help out that way.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And Kyra, did you have any questions? You're muted. Kyra, you still there?
Yeah,
there-
sorry. As soon as I went to hit the button to unmute, something went weird with my camera. So am I correct in thinking that Mark and Danielle are interested, but the rest of the four of you are trainers for this session?
Yes. Well, Jacinth and Duke are trainers. Myself and Jane were organizing.
Okay, so
So-
you and Jane will not be there?
No, we'll be there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all four of you will be there as
All four of
rent-
us will be there. Yes.
Okay. Can you go around in turn and say what it is that got you into this? Like, what is your background? What made you interested in NVC, and like how long have you been doing it?
Okay.
Sure.
I can start. I was in Arizona, and I was doing mediation, and I was doing some work for the town of Flagstaff, for the Attorney General's office up there. And I got a notice about Marshall coming into town and having a talk one night. And I assumed that it was kind of a mandatory thing for me to do because it came from the Attorney General's office who I was working for. But apparently she was just promoting for a friend. But anyway, I went there and it was a rough start because it was in the evening up in Flagstaff, and Marshall's plane was late. He was flying into Phoenix, and that's like 2 hours away from Flagstaff. And so we were all waiting, and people were starting to leave. And someone from Tucson got up and tried to begin things and talk about NVC, but he wasn't very good, and more people were leaving. And I was about to when suddenly Marshall showed up, and everything shifted after that. After hearing him just for a couple of hours there, my wife and I at the time both signed up and went to a 3-day retreat with Marshall 2 days later. And that was the start. I couldn't stop. That was back in '96, I believe. So from then on, I've been doing my best to live NVC, and still working at it. So that's my background on it.
I can go. 21 years ago, I bought the house I'm living in, and it's the house I grew up in, and my parents were included. So I was married, and I had living with my parents, and we faced a lot of challenges. For the first 5 years, it was really, really hard. And at one point, my mother said, okay, it's enough. We're leaving, we're going somewhere else. And I said, there must be a solution. We can live together. And then I saw an article about NVC, and I called the lady and say, can I have an appointment? Can you do something for us? And we had mediation, and actually, I didn't have a mediation with my parents, just the contact I had with her opened up my mind. And then I realized that I was projecting so much on my father. So I retrieved my projection, and it totally changed the way we were living together. And from that moment, I said, okay, I want more of that. And I started like an intro, and then year-long programs, and I became certified in 2018, and then became an assessor in 2021, 22, I don't remember. No, I started becoming an assessor in 2021 and ended it in 2023, last year. I became an assessor. So that's my path with NVC.
Thanks. And what was your educational background before that?
I have a master's degree in informational technology,
Oh, cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
You want to go ahead,
Yeah.
Jane? I can go last, or do you want me to go?
You're muted, Jane.
Thank you for offering to. Yes, I'll go. I first came across NVC, and in fact, I don't think it was even called NVC. It was in a book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and How to Listen So Kids Will Talk. I had just recently separated from their father, and I was living half the time with my two children, who were 6 and 11 at the time, and they fought nonstop. And I would just sometimes have to get up and tell them, I'm going for a walk. And I was beside myself, and I came across this book, and it saved my life. And it was NVC. It was about empathic listening to my children, our children, and not coercing them into doing anything, but rather together, cooperatively, making decisions and really listening to what they were saying to me, rather than imposing my will upon them. And it changed our household such that it was harmonious. Well, not all the time, of course, with little kids, but I found it was worth the time spent listening to them, even if it took half an hour, instead of saying, just do it, because after that, it made it easier. And I think I'll just stop there, because that was really the key. And I started taking NVC much later on, with Tosha and Gina, whom you'll meet at the IIT. And I will be an on-site coordinator. I'm not a trainer by any means. I'm a learner, and a secret. I'm going there to learn, but I'm also going to be Tosha's helper, and there to make the environment as agreeable and as livable for the people who are there as possible. Over to you, Duke.
Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Back in 1999, Marshall's book had just come out, and it came across my path, and I read it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for and needing. And then I told myself, oh, I must have kind of read more into it than what was really there. So I read it a second time. And by the end of the second time, I had knew I needed this. And I literally quit my job and went to the next training that Marshall was doing, which happened to be in Switzerland, and then traveled with him off and on, because he had a suicidal schedule at that time. He was literally training about 300 days a year. But I traveled with him off and on for about 9 months, because I needed to learn it. I wanted to learn it. And about that time, my marriage at the time fell apart, and it was extremely painful for me. And so I was thinking I was going to use it with others, and instead I ended up, for the first couple of years, using it with myself, and really getting to know myself, and doing, quite a bit of healing work with myself, using NVC as one of the major tools to do that. And then I started, sharing it as well, offering trainings and things, and nowadays my focus a lot is with groups and communities in conflict. So I use NVC and restorative dialogue to work with groups in conflict all over the world, on both active conflict and like reconciliation after conflict. Yeah, and I'm definitely still a learner, despite whatever it is now, 25 years or more. I'm still trying to figure it out. And but it's certainly turned my life around in enormous ways. So I'm grateful to have it, and it's fun to share.
Thanks. And
Thanks.
what were you doing before that?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm originally trained as a physical therapist, and but at the time I was doing international public health work, sort of community development, public health work.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mhm.
And thanks to all of you for the background. It's just like trying to get to know, the people who are going to be there. And another question, you all seem like you've done multiple ITT or, extensive trainings. If a participant who shows up was going to have difficulty or submit a complaint, what have you heard of? What would it be in your experience? Has that happened, or does that just never happen?
Yeah, Duke.
I just want to clarify, Kira, you're saying that if during the IITs something happened and the person was upset or something, how would they?
If a participant was going to have run into difficulty at some point during a 9-day intensive session, where would it be? What would it be?
Hmm.
So you mean difficulty with picking up on what's going on, or
Not
difficulty with
understanding, not feeling like they're fitting in, feeling like they're doing it wrong, not, that sort of thing, or having conflict with others.
Thank you.
Because I imagine it has happened before. If you get, new people coming in, people who don't have training in this, it's a new experience for them. I, wouldn't believe that it's all smooth sailing all the time forever. So
Duke, you've got a lot of experience with that. You want to?
I think well, the one thing that's coming up is that we set up at the beginning of the 10 days a lot of different kinds of support systems that people can draw on to get whatever kind of support they need. So, we have various kinds of empathy systems, ways that people can receive empathy either personally or in small groups. So we have often what we call empathy angels, empathy buddies, that people who are offering themselves to be present with people who are maybe struggling with something and need to be heard. Each day we have people who identify themselves as anyone in the group can go to. We have what we call home groups, which is 4, 5, 6 people who meet every day, the same group every day, and they get to know each other quite well. And they have about an hour or so every day to exchange empathy and understanding and sort of really give support to each other. If conflicts arise, you have a conflict with someone in the group, we'll set up a conflict system. That's a way that you can get support of various types to help you through that conflict if that's something you're needing. Anything from empathic listening to, some kind of mediation or something like that if that's needed. You're also free to choose, what you go to and what you don't go to. So if it's becoming overwhelming or something you need a break, you're free to, take an afternoon off, as well as we have an afternoon that we do take off for the whole group to kind of use for integration and downtime, and because it is very intensive. It's why it's called an IIT, an international intensive. those are some of the things. Is that beginning to answer what you're asking, Kira, or is there something else? And then I want to open up for my colleagues to respond.
That's along the right lines. I'm curious what others have to say.
Great. I'll leave it at that and see if others want to add things.
I'll just add that I think you might have come on after we shared this, or maybe not. But just to remind you that, you know, we do have a beginner's track, at least for the first 3 days, so that people who are unfamiliar with NVC can be together and learn the basics. Get where the focus is really on beginning, so that they can come up to a common ground. So that's one of the things that kind of supports everyone. And like Duke said, you also have choices on where you can go and if you want to take some time off to integrate as well. So
Okay. And how much training would one have before they are not considered a beginner anymore? Is it only for people who've never done it, or?
no, it could be for anyone who wants to be in that beginner track. It's like I said, I went to, I don't know, 10, 15 intros that Marshall gave. And I went to intros that other people gave too, other trainers. And I always learn something. So I don't, it's not a matter of progressive points or something like that. You know, you don't reach a certain level and then you graduate to the next level. It's, you just have to start integrating as you do and taking practice. The more you hear it, the more you practice it, the more you integrate it as part of your system.
Okay, so what are the non-beginners doing for the first 3 days?
Well, there'd be other offerings that people may have requests for things like Mark was talking about, restorative circles and focusing in a relationship, focusing connected with nonviolent communication. So there might be workshops like on that, or sessions on that, or on anger or children or whatever people bring up that they would like to have a session on. And also the trainers may have particular topics that they like in particular and want to offer. So there will be different offerings. So everyone has a choice of where they go.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any experiences with like just participants' experiences not going particularly smoothly?
Tosha, I can speak to that. Kyra, it's Mark. I attended the IIT in Los Angeles in August 2023. And as a participant there, I found that like a very strong theme throughout the duration of the IIT was race relations. And there was quite a bit of time devoted to that. And at one point there was all the trainers made the request that the trainers decided that there would be a single session for a 2-hour period to discuss the topic of race relations. I found that I didn't personally want to attend that session. I just simply took the 2 hours and went to the chapel at the venue and meditated. But I think also as a participant, I echo what Duke shared around the structures that are built into IITs to support participants. That the home group is one, I found it to be one very good structure. It acts as a safety valve, if you will, in my mind. So if you're finding that something's not working for you or you're upset by something, that's one point during the day, and in LA, it came just after lunch, that I would connect with 4 other participants in the IIT and share what was alive in me, and they would share what was alive in them. And so if I needed empathy, if I needed support of something that was troubling me, I'd find it there. And if I didn't get the level of support that I needed in the home group, I always trusted that others in the home group would respectfully ask if I was open to having them, approach one of the instructors to share that, hey, here's a participant who's struggling. Could you offer support? So I think the structure of the IIT is really well thought out to make sure that if something isn't working for you, that it gets surfaced and you work it through, either giving yourself empathy or in discussion with the training team.
Thank you, Mark. Is that setting okay with you, Kyra? How's that going? I'm guessing I interpreted, I'm telling myself that you had a little anxiety around how things could be handled. Maybe you've had some experiences that in the past or something. So I just want to check and see if you're getting what you need from our answers.
Yeah, and that's what the Q&A session was for. I thought, if I've misunderstood that, please let me know. But I found the website was very, here's the dates, here's the time, here's the location. We're teaching NVC, and that's it. So like, there was no explanation of what are the supports there, because I imagine for a lot of people, this is a difficult skill to learn. And not seeing any mention of, well, what do we do if it's not going well? What do we do if we melt down? What do we do if we can't handle it? Is not really addressed.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have to see if there's something we can put in there about that. Yeah, it doesn't say much, does it? Our Facebook page gives a little bit more about the venue and that, but really not about what's going to take place. So
yeah, or even the agenda, knowing that, it is okay for beginners. Here's what they're going to be doing at the start. Here's what the non-beginners are going to be doing. Here's how we decide on what those extra sessions are going to be. And even just like accommodations for people who are autistic or, neurodivergent, are there behavioral standards? Are there dress standards? Are there, all these other things that really help to know in deciding whether or not to invest several $1,000s in something like this.
Yeah, thank you. I'll definitely take that information, those questions to mind, see if we can add anything to our Facebook page and informing people about what's going on or what it's like. Thank
I
you.
think later on there's going to be, you will receive an idea of the structure of the days and what's going to happen at various times during the day. But I also would like to offer maybe something that will settle some anxiety, and that is that it's not a psychotherapy session that you'll be coming to. NVC is not a time for personal growth and going into your traumas and things like that. If you were thinking it was something like that and that you might have a meltdown, just to reassure you that there's no expectations for you to achieve enlightenment or to get over some childhood trauma that you had. You will take it at your own pace. And if anybody wants to follow up on that.
Well, it may trigger because we're doing some we bring consciousness into our inner world, our emotions and triggers. And so it may trigger reactions, but we do our best. And with every IIT that happened before, we learned more how to create a safe space where we can explore and feel some kind of security and safety, that it's okay. And as Jane is saying, it's not a therapy. We're not here to go there, but it may happen. But we know that we're conscious of that possibility, and creating spaces and groups and
We try to provide a very good container to hold everyone and to have different options in how to deal with things. So, yeah.
I wonder if I could ask a question kind of related to those topics. And
Okay.
I was also thinking about when much of what I believe the nonviolent communication is based on is verbal. And with some of the really great questions that were being asked, I was thinking, so my partner is on the autism spectrum, and a meltdown for him would not necessarily be a revisiting of a trauma, but environmental types of things. And the type of communication that I might typically engage with can be quite overwhelming for him. So I guess in part, I was just wondering if I imagine those things are taken into consideration, but also I wondered if potentially within the training, there might be something I could also gain to consider communication with my partner that is less verbal based, like understanding that there are probably lots of ways that non-verbally we are communicating as we're talking. But yeah, sometimes I want to chat about it for hours and he's like, he's got 2 minutes. So yeah, I just didn't know if part of the nonviolent communication might offer some insights as to the ways in which we can communicate outside of exclusively verbal language.
I'll just say one of the key things that I've learned is empathy is mostly silence. It's not the words we use. It's that space we hold. So some of the most effective empathy in a situation like that is silence, but connecting with the person at that level and what needs are going on and what's happening for them, but without having to reflect it back. That's one thing that's possible. But Duke or Jacinth might have something else to say about that too.
That's where I was going. Like the words are just tool to connect, but they're not the only one. So through NVC, we learn to open up and connect through empathy with our heart, with what's alive behind the words. Jude, would you like to add something?
Sure. There's a couple things and my mind is going blank that I wanted to say. That's funny. Can you say what you said again? Just send this one more time, and because it'll bring back what it was.
That words are a structure. It's not. We try to connect to the energy.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think one of the things that you'll get to hopefully experience and learn, and see modeled, hopefully, by us and other participants and things, is it's not just an intellectual thing of communication, it's an embodied experience. And that's kind of what the presence is an embodied experience. So that's one big thing that helps us to kind of take in the fullness of the information that's coming from that person, some of which is words, some of which is something else, body language and various things that are happening. The other thing that might be super helpful is, one of the key skills is being able to identify needs of ourselves and to make guesses about the needs of others. And that can be super helpful, with someone I'm guessing like your partner, making some guesses about what his needs are, their needs are, and then what kind of strategies could support them getting those needs met. So that's another thing that could potentially be super helpful in this case.
Thank you. Those are really wonderful.
So I notice it's about 8 o'clock, and I just wanted to check if there's any last questions, and if not, just a brief checkout, maybe a word or two from each person as to what they're feeling in the moment, or yeah, what's going on inside of them right now after this time together. So first of all, are there any other questions before we go to a little checkout?
I just had one I think is brief, and that was, I imagine these skills are applicable in all kinds of settings, like universally. I wondered if there was any offerings that might speak to applications of nonviolent communication within a healthcare setting. Like if I work in healthcare, maybe there is not a specific session that needs to be tailored to that. But if there were, I wondered if that is sometimes available.
Yeah.
I was originally trained as a physiotherapist or physical therapist. So and I still occasionally do some work in the area, and I use my skills all the time in that setting. Working with patients, it's tremendous help to be able to really hear them and understand them, and it often gives them relief because, as you can imagine, going through a health crisis, there's a lot of empathy that's needed. So it's certainly something that could be super useful and something that could be talked about. Because one of the things that we also do as trainers is we put up a board for requests. So if there's certain topics that you would love to see covered, you can put a request up on the board, and we as trainers do our best sometime over the 10 days to try to cover as many of those things as we can.
Fantastic, thank you.
And can I just say one more word because Kira, you asked about is there some kind of agenda or something? And I wanted to just say that we do have each day, we have a topic sort of the day, like empathy or self-empathy or expression or social change, these kinds of things. So usually at least a couple of the trainers will present on that topic. And then there'll be other additional topics that we choose or that is requested that we add to. So there is sort of a broad agenda that we do follow. So I just wanted to touch on that since you had sort of mentioned that as one of the things. I'm complete now, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So a little brief checkout. I know that, I don't know, I'm feeling kind of expansive and full. There's a gratitude that we got to get together and to get to know each other a bit and to answer some questions. So feeling grateful.
Same thing, grateful and blessed to connect with beautiful people. Thank you. Jane, you want to go?
There's a little worry that that Kyra, that your question that you'd like more elaboration on what's being offered. That's still sticking with me, and I kind of want to answer that right away, but rush around and get that into the pamphlet or something. So I hear you. And apart from that, I'm feeling very alive and looking very much forward to other sessions like this, and of course to the session itself in June. Glad to have met you, Duke, and Kyra, Mark, and Danielle.
Thank you, Jane. Mark, do you want to check out, unmute yourself? And
Thank you, Tosha. I'm feeling grateful to all the organizers and instructors associated with the IIT to share your time this evening to connect with us. I'm feeling excited. I'll be attending, barring any unexpected emergencies. So I'll look forward to seeing you all in June. And I hope to get the chance to meet Kyra and Danielle there as well. Tosha, thank you for your email reply on the question that I had.
You're welcome. Kyra, would you like to check out?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle?
I just wanted to express my gratitude for the time and the sharing that you've offered. It's really given me a lot of additional things to think about and some insights I didn't have prior. So thank you all for this time.
Well, thank you all very much. It was very good
Check
to
out?
meet you all. And
Did you check out?
Duke didn't check out.
Didn't check out.
oh,
No
I
problem.
missed you, Duke.
No problem. Yeah, a lot of gratitude. Happy people showed up and just reminded me of the joy I had in the IIT a couple months ago. So I'm excited for this one. It'll be really fun for me to be sharing NVC in my home country. It's been a little while.
Okay, thank you all.